we are moving from a phase that people used to talk to ChatGPT to a phase that you talk to agents. And when you're talking to ChatGPT, your concern was that you're not sending confidential data to the LLM outside your security perimeter. The best solution right now, as the technology evolves, is to keep everything under your VPC at least. Yeah, because by keeping the RAG database and VPC, you can use the same type of techniques that for to protect your organization, to protect those databases. AI is moving extremely fast. Okay, I was giving this talk at MIT on Tuesday at the Nanda project, which talks about agentic society, and everyone was talking about speed. And I basically told them, look, you want to talk about speed? If you just look at what happened with Windsurf last week, on Thursday it was going to be acquired by OpenAI. On Friday, two people, the CEO and another person, moved to Google. And on Monday, they basically announced the merge. So this is the kind of speed that I'm talking. People talk about agentic AI and AI agents.
Welcome to the Chief AI Officer Podcast,
where AI meets leadership.
And here is your host, Sanjay Puri.
Welcome to the CAIO Podcast, where we explore the journeys, insights, and challenges of Chief AI officers driving transformative AI initiatives in the world's largest enterprises and government agencies. I'm your host, Sanjay Puri, and today we have an extraordinary guest with us who brings a truly unique perspective to the evolving role of the Chief AI Officer. Joining us today is Claudionor Coelho Jr., the Chief AI Officer at Zscaler, one of the leading cybersecurity firms in the world. Claudio has a remarkable background that spans 3 decades at the intersection of formal methods, machine learning, and enterprise AI. He holds a PhD from Stanford University and has held leadership positions at Google, Palo Alto Networks, and Adventist. Claudio, welcome to the CIO podcast.
Thanks, Sanjay. It's an honor to be here today.
Great. Claudio, we have a global audience. Our audience is made up of your peers, chief AI officers. It's made up of AI entrepreneurs, AI policy leaders, and just AI enthusiasts. For them, why don't we start with your journey? You've had a fascinating career spanning formal verification, academia, and now enterprise AI. What drew you to the intersection of mathematics, computer science, and eventually AI? And also tell our listeners who might not be as familiar with Zscaler, just very briefly about what Zscaler is too.
Okay, first of all, Zscaler is a cybersecurity company. We hold the largest cybersecurity cloud in the world, and we process over 500 billion transactions per day, securing businesses across the world. And in my case, I actually as you said, I did my PhD at Stanford in what people use now. One of the techniques people use nowadays to build AI acceleration. And at that time, like 30 years ago, there was no AI acceleration. But there was a usage on what I did my PhD on in formal verification. And I end up going to academia and also working on formal verification techniques. We sold 2 companies to Cadence Design Automations previously. And then when I saw the shift to AI happening like 2010, around 2010, 2013, then I started shifting my career towards AI. And as you said, I had the numerous applications. Initially, I was working on AI acceleration, then I ended up working on AI applications. And now with agentic world and agentic society moving to agents.
Well, we're going to get into agents, because you have a very fascinating take on that. But before that, Claudio, you were at MIT recently and you did a presentation called Do LLMs Dream of Discrete Algorithms, which is for people who don't know, it's a play on Philip Dick's famous novel. What's the core message that you're trying to convey about the current limitations of our large language models, Claudio?
So usually I say that there are 2 types of, let's call it reasoning. There is discrete reasoning, which is basically what people have been doing in AI until 2010. and there is probabilistic reasoning, which is what generative AI is all about. And the problem happens when you try to mix both of them, because when you say sentences like, I like day, but it's sunny now, you have to understand that from an LLM perspective, sunny and day may be the same world, but from a symbolic system, it's really not the same world. It may mean different things. And I joke saying, if you're in Stockholm at 9 p.m. during the summer, that and you take a picture, that picture will be called midnight sun. And what is the problem with that? We live in a world with rules, and and we communicate in English, for example. And the problem is that sentences do not mean exactly when you need the rules. For example, when you step on when you're driving your Tesla car in self-driving mode, if there is a wall, you don't want the car to stop with 99% probability. You want the car to stop with 100% probability so that you don't hit the wall. So we need to have to operate moving forward in those two worlds.
So we need to obviously operate in those two worlds. And one of the things you've been very vocal about, Claudio, has been that LLMs, struggle with NP complete problems and discrete reasoning. And for our enterprise AI leader listeners, why should they care about these theoretical limitations when implementing practical AI solutions?
Very well put. There is a class of problems in computer science called NP-complete problems, and as we know, LLMs have fixed token space. Even you say it's 1 million tokens or 2 million tokens, it is still fixed token space. So there are a class of problems finding bugs in software, as there is an article on VentureBeat about that LLMs are very good at fixing bugs, but they don't know where the bugs are. And because finding bugs in software is an NP complete problem. And it's even worse because there is a very few solutions in that NP complete problem. So it's a sparse solution space. What that means is that you actually have to traverse the whole space or a very large portion of that space in order to find where the bug is. And the explanation for that is quite simple. If the bug were simple to find, you would have already found it. Okay. And because it's fixed token space, LLMs cannot possibly be able to find the bugs.
Yeah. So obviously, that makes a big difference. One of the things you just mentioned to our listeners, Claudio, is that at Zscaler, you deal with massive scale, 500 billion daily transactions. How do you approach AI implementation at that scale while still maintaining security and reliability? Because your peers want to learn from some of your lessons.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Jay was visionary because to process that amount of data, we need from ground up to build an infrastructure that has AI in mind. So from the inception, even before I joined Zscaler, Zscaler was already processing like massive amount of data using AI. What has changed in the past 2 years is that LLMs became smarter and they can assist you in operating and investigating information in using English as a language. And because of that, that changes completely the scope and what you can do. You can now talk about agents that assist humans. And I like to say that we like to have like a clothes like that you dress up, and then that will make you a human instead of being a human, a superhuman, to be able to look into several scenarios and analyze several conditions at the same time. And that's what generative AI is bringing to us at this stage in human society.
So to become superhuman is what Gen AI is helping us, Claudio. One of the other things, since now we are talking a little bit about agents, which is kind of the topic du jour, the flavor of the month, the year, etc., is you coined that term, bring your own agents, BYOA, a kind of take on BYOD, bring your own device. What do you mean by that? Explain that to our listeners.
Yeah, so the idea is this. So if you're going to be analyzing vast amount of data, you usually need a lot of signals. And those signals comes from different data logs or something like that. So in the past, we told people to bring your own data or device, and when they brought their data, you still had the burden to do the analysis of the data. Now, when you talk about bring your own agent, that means that we can integrate agent to agent using agent to agent communication. And because of that, the agent will already do the analysis of the data for you. So it's like one level up in the analysis and being able to explore a vast amount of data that is available everywhere.
So vast amounts of data is being analyzed within that agent, an agent platform. Uh, Given that security is really a major concern of your work at Zscaler, you mentioned that AI and agents are talking to your most confidential and valuable data. What specific security challenges keep you up as a CAIO, Chief AI Officer, but also what security challenges should keep up your peers and other listeners up, given now we have agents, we have LLMs, etc.
Yeah, usually people, so we are moving from a phase that people used to talk to ChatGPT to a phase that you talk to agent. And when you're talking to ChatGPT, your concern was that you're not sending confidential data to the LLM outside your security perimeter. Okay? So now that you're talking about agents and agents communicating with other agents using HOA or MCP, HOA from Google, MCP from Anthropic, the problem that you have is that you may have authorization to communicate with an agent here to send confidential information. After that information leaves your security perimeter and reaches that endpoint, which is an agent, that agent can start communicating with other entities, and you don't know. So we need to start securing the data across all the different places where the data goes if you're going to enter an agentic society that agents talks to agents massively in society. And we need to have full traceability where the data is going to.
Full traceability. Now, you talked about MCP, which has kind of become the standard, or A2A, which is the other standard. One of the reasons of doing these standards, according to all the companies that are involved in it, is making sure we have security. You don't think that these agents are secure enough? Because every chief AI officer, CIO, CTO that I discuss on this are going all out in implementing agents. So what is your obviously message to them in terms of how they are implementing, and what should they be doing in terms of taking care to make sure their data doesn't leak out?
Yeah, so first thing you have to understand is this. I'm not against like the agentic world and agents being distributed everywhere. The technology that advanced in MCP and HOA before some security measures should be in place, some guarantees. And my recommendation to companies is that we must watch, but right now, one of the safest bets is to put everything under your VPC, at least, the virtual private cloud, so that at least you control where the data is going. Because once that I'll give an example. Suppose you hire an agent that does financial auditing of your company before an earnings call, and you decide to send your most confidential data, your like financial data before the earnings call to an agent outside your security perimeter. By the time you authorize that entity to receive your financial data, but the issue is that by the time they receive the data, you don't know where the data is going anymore. Unless you have some traceability on where the data is going in that entity on the other side of your security perimeter, then unfortunately you don't know what's going on. There are a few leaks or a few security problems that have been reported almost on a weekly basis on an MCP of data leaving a customer A and appearing customer B. And this is exactly what I have been talking about.
So what you're suggesting, Claudio, is secure your data, preferably in a VPC, in a virtual private cloud, before you push it out onto agents, per se, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, Claudio, you worked also in neurosymbolic AI, which is for our listeners, and we learn something every day. It's combining neural networks with symbolic reasoning. Do you see this approach as solving some of the challenges that you're talking about and the other enterprise AI challenges?
Oh, one of the things that I try to solve with symbolic AI is that language is ambiguous. The Sunny and Day issue that I mentioned to you shows you that language has different interpretations, and that's the biggest advantage of LLMs, and is that LLMs brings you the possibility of doing interpretation for you. On the other hand, our world is made of rules, so there is a synergy between both of them. When I was at Palo Alto Networks, according to Professor Moshe Vardi from Rice University, we developed the first neurosymbolic product in the world back then. And
Mhm.
what we did is basically combining language with the with formal methods, with like a proof system that you can obtain results. And this is the world people are basically mentioning that all the time. Uh, Professor Louise Lamb was the creator, one of the creators of neurosymbolic, and Gary Marcus has been vocal. I think he posted something on Monday saying
Mhm.
that we're starting to see that Grok 4 and some other LLMs are trying to merge symbolic methods with LLMs.
Yeah, I read that. So, a lot of very interesting technological innovation is happening. Claudio, maybe we step back more at a enterprise level with your role internally at Zscaler for your peers. Uh, you get to look at so many opportunities of using AI for Zscaler. How do you pick on what are the best use cases? Because there must be thousands of use cases that you can look at. One of the challenges your peers deal with is how do I pick the best use cases, because we can't pick the best ones.
That's a very good and interesting question. So, the way that, of course, one of the things that is becoming quite popular these days, people want to talk to your data. Okay.
Mhm.
So, Google just released, just made a press release today, this morning,
Mhm.
talking, saying that they can create graph foundation models to understand structured data, and the world is basically comprised of structured data and unstructured data.
Mhm.
And even when you talk about training large language models, we have to understand that the majority of the data is inside corporations, are the tables, the documents, workflows,
Mhm.
everything comprises of data inside the corporations. And this data, basically, you need to talk to this data, you need to understand this data, and you need to operate in this data. And I think that's where we have one of the biggest opportunities is to
Mhm.
ingest AI and LLMs and agents inside corporations to work together, understanding the data and workflows inside corporations.
So understand the data and look at them. But are there specific use cases that make more sense, whether it is, I'm just picking customer service or things of that nature from a use case versus more complicated or maybe more risky applications? How should one pick which are the best ones, or from an ROI perspective? And return on investment can be revenue, cost savings, etc.
Yeah, there are several. I was talking to a CEO of a company a few months ago, and he was asking me like this: How can I use like LLMs? We're not even talking about agents. He was saying, "How can I use LLM inside my organization?" And it was a very large telecom company. And I opened my laptop and I said, "Let me tell me a problem that you have. Let's start developing a business plan on how to address this problem." And we basically started using the LLM to just draw scenarios. LLMs are extremely good at drawing scenarios, business scenarios for you. Of course, you have to start guiding them a little bit, but as you guide them, it helps you understand what really the business and the opportunity you want to do. There was a professor from Harvard last year that he said that the biggest advantage to his students was not to have LLM do the homework for them. Is that as they start writing the prompts for the LLM, they started understanding the problem they need to solve. And that for him was the biggest advantage. And the same thing happens in corporations. As you start prompting the LLM to get like scenarios and analyze scenarios for you, they can generate tremendous ideas, and it makes you like understand the problem better.
Yeah, so they can make you understand it better. Claudio, you've seen symbolic AI from the 1990s to now large language models right now. What patterns do you see kind of repeating itself or emerging from that perspective?
Oh, in the 90s, like AI was basically rule-based system, right?
Hmm.
And then from rule-based system, we basically moved to predictive AI. And now we have generative AI, but generative AI is very open. So what I'm seeing is that there are certain places where we are starting to see that we need to put some rules back in the system. As I mentioned to you, like the world is made of rules. So I think that we're seeing like an emergence not of a rule-based system, but AI generated or AI uh, 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 helping humans to write rules to make those rules more accessible. And you have to remember, when you run something on a large language model, it takes some time. Okay, so it's not something that can run instantaneously. But if you have like a system that needs to react very quickly, it's better to have the LLM write for you the code or the rules, and then you use those rules because those rules are going to be running extremely fast.
Yeah, they will run extremely fast. Claudio, Zscaler is a global corporation, like a lot of companies that you deal with. Does it, what are the implications when people are using AI, whether they're using LLMs, agents, etc., when you work globally, maybe different languages, different rules, different regulations, different infrastructure, whether it is from a security standpoint, from an implementation standpoint? Talk to your peers who are dealing with these kinds of issues globally.
Yeah, well, of course, one of the concerns everyone has these days is like if you train LLMs, LLMs can leak out training data.
Hmm.
So we have to make sure that our infrastructure, even if you're going to be training LLMs, that it's confined to customer base, because there's no way to guarantee that LLMs are not going to leak out data. People need to understand that LLMs alone, they can hallucinate. So there is a large amount of work that you need to put on the LLMs, around the LLMs, guardrails being one example, to guarantee that hallucination is under control. Okay.
Mm.
And people need to, for me, for example, when I talk to people internally, when people come to me and say, "Oh, but everyone knows how LLMs are slow and can hallucinate," I said, "You may understand that, but customers will not understand that."
Yeah. Uh, Given what you do at Zscaler, and this is really for our leaders of enterprise who are looking at these implementations of agents and others, what new attack surfaces emerge, Claudio, when agents hand off tasks to downstream agents outside the enterprise perimeter?
So one of the things people are starting to look at right now on the attack surface, of course, there was a very interesting paper from Anthropic last year where they were basically discussing about sleeper cell behavior, in
Hmm.
which by just putting like a keyword in the prompt, you could change the behavior of the LLM. Another thing that we're seeing, and this is not related, people are relying more and more in multimodal systems, and multimodal means a large language model that understands images as well. And
Hmm.
as we know, with deep learning for images, we could put certain noise or certain types of things on the images, and that would make the system classify images differently. And the same thing will happen as we have those LLMs with multimodal systems. Okay. And of course, majority of documents is in PDF. parsing PDF it's a challenge everywhere that we go, right? Because PDF has a lot of problems. And finally, people have relied more and more in documents and unstructured documents. And as I usually say to companies, a lot of people have not realized that data is conflicting, temporal, and cloud promised for you to save the data and worry about the data later. And right now, we are basically using this data in LLMs, in agent systems or LLMs. And you have to understand that simply because data is conflicting, that has not been solved by LLMs. LLMs will just expose the conflicts to the end user.
True. As you said, a lot of data is unstructured, and people are using a lot of vector databases. But Claudio, what vector databases are also attacks are rising. What best practices do you recommend from keeping RAG, retrieval augmented generation, from becoming a data leak nightmare for some of these leaders of companies?
So one of the things that's what I mentioned to you before, the best solution right now, as the technology evolves, is to keep everything under your VPC at least. Yeah, because by keeping the RAG database and VPC, you can use the same type of techniques that for to protect your organization, to protect those databases. And you have to understand that those RAG databases will become part of your crown jewels in the company that you need to protect as well.
Okay, so protect that using VPC. Uh, do leaders of companies, CIOs, and others come to you talking about agents lately? What is your recommendation? Do you think every enterprise should have agents, and what should they keep that in mind when they're looking at building agents, Claudio?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I talk to CEOs and to board members and VPs, and usually they come to me because they want to do AI and they don't know how to migrate to AI. Okay.
Hmm.
And when I talk to them, I said, you need to start AI from a security point of view as well, because the technology have advanced much faster on the AI part and less on the security, and people are starting to realize the risks that they are incurring on. And several times people do not realize that if your HR person is sending like an offer letter to ChatGPT outside your security perimeter, the HR may be violating data protection law. So we need to put those laws in place and those regulations in places inside the corporation. And you need to understand where the data is flying. And that's what I said. You need to have like a holistic view on that, because that's really is going to hurt you, maybe not right now, but in the near future.
It'll hurt you not now, but in the near future. That brings us to the point that you mentioned that formal systems can assist LLMs, referencing your Unit 10X project. Can you give our audience just a concrete example of how this hybrid approach can work in practice, Claudio?
Yeah. So I just put on a few months ago, I put on my GitHub the Unit 10X, as you mentioned, which is basically a system that, remember, VentureBeat published an article saying LLMs can fix bugs, but they cannot find them. Formal systems can find the bugs. So we created a system that basically uses formal technology uh, from a professor, like it's called, the technology that we use is called the ESBMC, from a professor of University of Manchester. And basically we basically use formal to find the bugs in the code. And then after we found the vectors that has the bugs, then we use LLMs to generate the test for you to, or to fix the code for you. And that work that we are writing a paper right now on that with Professor Lucas, and that's basically shows the success of the technique. The for large code base or legacy libraries, that's your best bet.
Mhm. Uh, Claudio, coming to a little bit to talk about talent. As you know, lately if everybody's talking about this big $100 million payoffs for AI talent and other things. We won't go into that, but uh, Zscaler is obviously looks to also bring on talent. And for our folks here, and it's a two-part question. One is, what kind of people, what kind of skills do you look for when you bring people onto your team? Because we obviously encourage people to go to companies like Zscaler and others, because if people just end up in these 4 or 5 foundation companies, AI is never going to get implemented and have the success it does. So we definitely want, this is a pitch for Claudio to make for talent to come to them. So tell a little bit about that. But also the other aspect is for aspiring chief AI officers, what kind of skills should they have? So it's a two-part question on talent.
So you have to understand that the majority of the data that LLMs are trained are inside corporations, and those data will corporations will never leak out to be trained by GPT or Gemini or Claude or even Grok. So
Mhm.
because it's corporate data and it's private data. So
Mhm.
having said that, you have to understand that's a huge opportunity for AI people to actually to use that data and to explore that data. And one of the things that I always look out is for people who are like to look outside the box. Okay. Because we need to search for opportunities and search for new opportunities in the domain. And sometimes the opportunities are not coming from the LLM itself, but it
Mhm.
all comes from LLM together with the data, together with other things, and which will require you to understand the business and the workflows inside the company. So
Yeah.
that's basically my message to chief AI officers and aspiring people.
Look, think outside the box, I think is what Claudio is saying. Claudio, you also serve on the World Economic Forum working groups on AI and cybersecurity. When you look across global trends in AI governance and regulation, what trends should enterprise AI leaders prepare for?
Uh, so AI is moving extremely fast. Okay.
Mhm.
I was giving this talk at MIT on Tuesday at the Nanda project, which talks about agentic society, and everyone was talking about speed. And I
Mhm.
basically told them, look, you want to talk about speed? If you just look at what happened with Windsurf last week, on Thursday, it
Yeah,
was going to be acquired by OpenAI. On Friday, two people, the CEO and another person, moved to Google. And
Google.
on Monday, they basically announced the merge. So this is the kind of speed that I'm talking. On a daily basis, things are changing in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
So, and the technology is moving so fast that people are still trying to grasp how it will affect their lives. So when I joined Zscaler end of 2023, they asked me to go to this event for the World Economic Forum, and it was the first year they were going to have that meeting after ChatGPT was out, and everyone was scared, saying ChatGPT is going to change the world. Everyone is going to be unemployed, and we have to figure out what to do. And there were a few people, maybe in one of them, saying, look, we're still far away from AGI. However, if you put AGI with algorithms, which is basically agents, we can do for specific tasks a lot of good stuff. So we should shift from ChatGPT to agents. So in the following year, they just started talking about agents. And this is
yeah,
how fast the things are. People are still trying to figure out.
yeah. Things are. It's head spinning. What is happening right now, Claudio? Uh, Two questions quickly, since you mentioned this. Uh, you've been through many different transformations in your career. You know, you've seen mobile, you've seen cloud, you've seen well, internet. I'm not trying to show your age or anything like that. Does this feel different, Claudio, than those other transformations that you've seen before?
So, you know that the first cell phone call was made by, I forgot about the name of the engineer, but he was in New York and he got like a cell phone that was like this big in Madison Square Garden or like somewhere in New York. And he made a phone call. At that
Mhm.
time, if you ask everyone around, do you need to, are you going to need a cell phone? The question at that time would be, what is a cell phone? Okay. And it took 20 years or 25 years until the cell phone business became stable, and it destroyed several companies and it created several other opportunities. What's happening this time with this technology on AI? Never in the world the technology has been adopted or the rate of adoption has been so fast as AI. And of course, that brings new opportunities. For example, if you see like the some big AI companies, they were hiring prompt engineers. There was no prompt engineer, and now people are calling context engineer 2 years later. There was no prompt engineer positions open like 2 years ago. Okay, so it's creating a lot of opportunities, but it will definitely change the way we do things. Let's take, for example, in UI UX as we know it. If you have UI UX, as we put LLMs to be the forefront of the interaction with the user, people will not do UI UX as they do right now. It will change, and
Mm,
people are still trying to adapt to that.
yeah. So, really transformational, I think, is what you're saying, Claudio. Claudio, you have talked a lot about agents, and that's a conversation that comes across everywhere. And it seems like everybody has a little different definition of an agent. What is Claudio's definition of an agent?
Yeah, so there is a definition that it's becoming a standard in the world, which is people talk about agentic AI and AI agents. Okay, agentic AI is when you basically dispatch something called like what people did in deep research. You give a topic and then it starts spinning off like search for everywhere, merging the data and bringing the data back to you. AI agents is basically what people are basically. It's basically workflow with AI. Okay, that's the easiest way to create that. And there is a role for both of them. If you want less hallucination, AI agents, which is like workflow based, is less prone to hallucination, but it's less flexible. Agentic AI is more flexible, but it may hallucinate more.
So, it's workflow with AI, is what you're saying is the definition. Are you saying agents will have much less hallucination,
Uh,
Claudio?
so it they will hallucinate, still hallucinate because LLMs hallucinate. So you need to find a way to ground your answer. And
Hmm.
by grounding, I mean a way to check your answer to see if your answer is correct or not. Okay,
Mm.
but workflow automation with AI, there's a lot of opportunities for that, and that's less prone to hallucination than having the LLM basically doing like what people call agentic AI, which
Hmm.
means like completely open-ended search. You have to understand that whenever your AI to be smart on when you type in on or when you talk to it, it needs to change the way you access data, and it needs to change the program, which is the code that is going to execute. By definition, this is what CISA calls SQL command injection and OS command injection. So the risk that we run into is that we are basically now creating systems that users can attack using English instead of using code.
System that can be attacked using English, which obviously opens it up significantly. Claudio, is Zscaler using agents?
We are using agents right now. Last year, I was participating in the project called ZDX Copilot, which was a multi-agent infrastructure, and we have presented several other agents that we have been working on.
Oh, fantastic. Finally, Claudio, as we look to the future, you have predicted the future will be agentic, which we've talked about a lot. It'll be neurosymbolic and secure. Can you paint for our listeners a picture of what enterprise AI will look like when all these three elements come together effectively?
Yep. I'll give an example.
Mhm.
Suppose that you have like an agent, a multi-agent system that is your personal assistant. And imagine a situation where in every company you could have a personal assistant to every employee that would look into emails. It would know how to connect things, book things automatically. And we're starting to see some signs of that. If it could even direct calls and actually truly having like a personal assistant to every employee of a company. That's the kind of application. And I was in this talk about agentic society from Professor Ramesh from MIT, and he's basically describing a scenario where we are going to have trillions of agents, not millions, not billions, but trillions of agents. And the reason for that is that agents is going to be helping you, assisting you in every single part of your journey or on your day. You could have a personal assistant. You could have an agent that is going to be taking care of our medical concerns. You could have an agent. So you can see that as you get to those agents, each one solving a different portion of your life, you can have like very easily thousands of agents per person in the world.
Yeah, I could use a lot more agents than I have right now, which is kind of none. Uh, Claudio, I don't know if you have, and you've discussed this with Professor Ramesh and others at MIT. The pricing of these agents is also going to be a little different. Will need some new thoughts, etc. Is that? Do you have an opinion on how these things get priced for users?
So this is like a quite interesting. This is something that was eye-opening in that workshop that I went, and there was a presentation by Professor Ramesh, and I'm going to quote him on that. He said, "Imagine that one agent needs to buy information or knowledge from another agent, and this agent here keeps learning more and more, but this agent is not learning as time elapses. So that means the gap between of the knowledge is going to increase over time." And because of that, then the knowledge gap is going to result in more charge. It's going to be more expensive. So we are going to be charging more and more on knowledge as
So
time
it'll be
evolves. And I'm quoting him on this.
yes. It'll be knowledge based. People are talking about outcome based, etc. So it's an evolving area, but a very important area, Claudio. Claudio, towards our end, for a little bit adding a little more fun, a little more bite to it, we have a lightning round of questions, which we want you to answer with one word or pick a choice. Are you ready for that?
Yep.
Okay. Claudio, Python or R? You're a techie,
Python.
so Python. Cloud or on-prem, Claudio?
Uh, Mixed.
Mix. Okay, get that. Supervised or unsupervised learning?
We need them supervised.
Okay. TensorFlow or PyTorch?
I used to be, when I was at Google, I used to be a TensorFlow guy, but right now I'm tending towards PyTorch.
PyTorch. Open source or proprietary AI models?
Um, Both. Let's put both.
Both.
There are applications for both.
Okay. Rule-based or machine learning approaches?
Hybrid, which is neurosymbolic.
Okay. Edge AI or cloud AI?
We're moving to the edge.
You're
Edge
moving to
AI,
the edge. Okay. Single agent or multi-agent systems?
multi-agent.
Okay. Explainable AI or black box performance?
Both.
Both. Okay.
It depends.
Finally, this is, it depends.
Yeah, but can I just make a comment here?
Yeah, please.
There are applications like medical or financial where you need to explain, but there are
Mhm,
limitations on the type of models that you can use, and there are
mhm.
applications that if you just give a probabilistic response, it's enough. So
Okay. Security first or innovation first approach?
I would say security first.
See, I knew you would say that. That was a tricky question for you. Just two more for you, Claudio. Quantized models or full precision models?
Quantized models.
And finally, foundation models or specialized models?
So I would say specialized models. There is a blog from Karpathy that he says that the world needs smaller models, and even
Yeah,
my previous work at Google, I worked on very tiny models that CERN used for subatomic particles, running extremely fast.
awesome. Claudio, I could just go on and on. It's been such a fascinating conversation. Your unique perspective on the intersection of formal methods, enterprise AI, cybersecurity provides such a valuable insight for our community of AI leaders and aspiring AI, especially your background and expertise in the current topic on agentic and agents, and also considering security from the very beginning of AI adoption. I think is a very important strategy rather than an afterthought, which is particularly timely as organizations are rushing to implement agents and multi-agent systems. And I love your concept of bring your own agents, BYOA. And for our listeners who want to follow you, they can look you up in LinkedIn, and they can also watch you on our podcast. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on the CIO podcast. It's you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe to it and also like it. We are building a community where chief AI officers or leaders learn from each other's experiences, and conversations like today's are exactly why this peer network is so important. Until next time, it's the CIO podcast. Claudio, thank you so much. This was great. As I said, I could have gone on and on. I had like a zillion other questions. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity of talking here, and thanks a lot.